on, guys? Cam Sweet here from the Garage Connection, and I'd like to take a little bit of time today to talk about our CJ. We've had this CJ off and on for a little while now. I found it hiding in a barn in Chesapeake, Virginia, and picked it up for a song and a dance, and I've been working on it ever since. But you know, this CJ's got a few things that I've done to it to upgrade it, and the first one I want to address is the change that I did from a carburetor to a throttle body style fuel injection system. In my opinion, you know, it's 2023. Not that many people know how to work on carburetors. I wasn't a big fuel injection guy, but admittedly, just being able to turn the key and drive the thing was pretty nice. I've gone through a bunch of different carbs on 4.2s, and in my opinion, a TBI system is about the best thing you can do for relatively the same cost as a new carb, and messing with the fuel system, you can do a TBI system. So we're going to go around it today. I'm going to show you how I did it. I did it a little bit differently than the instructions because I feel like it makes more sense. So let's get into it. Alright, the first thing that really anybody should do when they're looking at taking on a project like this is identify, are they a candidate for doing this type of work. On an install level wise, this is not a very difficult project. If you're comfortable doing basic wiring and basic fuel piping and plumbing, you're going to be just fine. I watched a few videos when I looked at doing this, and the only objections I had were mostly with the fuel system. The setup of the throttle body system is fairly refined at this point. The fuel system was a point of contention I had. Some kits want you to run an in-tank fuel pump. I don't like that for ease of access. Yes, I know that they're very long-lived, and a lot of vehicles run in-tank fuel pumps, and I completely understand. But you know how it is. Jeeps just have a way of breaking and annoying you at any moment they possibly can. So I didn't choose to do that. The other thing you got to say to yourself, or you got to figure out, is, do I want fuel injection? Okay, the factory carburetor that came on these Jeeps, if you have a pre-1982, you have a Carter BBD1. The Carter BBD1 carburetor has been tried and true. A lot of people like them. They say that they're decent off-road. They're all 40 years old, you know, so you're really left with two options. You know, get the Amazon cheap one, which is probably going to let you down, or find a good one on eBay, or find a good rebuild kit and hope you can do it. If that's something you want to do, I wish you luck. There's not really much more I can say about that. Now, if you have a post 1982, 83, where you start to get into the electronic control of your carburetor, then you got a whole bunch more problems. Okay, the early guys don't have to do things like the nutter bypass. The early guys don't have to deal with all the additional wiring that we have. This Jeep being an 84, this is what I had to work with. So the Carter BBD2 Style Carburetor is basically a carburetor with a fuel metering valve or a fuel metering needle on the back of it that the computer would adjust the fuel mixture to dictate how much fuel to give the engine. This was a very rudimentary design. It was extremely problematic, and if anybody has opened up the hood on an early YJ or a late model CJ, you know what I mean when I say that there's vacuum hoses and wiring everywhere. Some people are big into keeping the ignition and the fuel control system all original on their Jeeps. That's fantastic, you know, but for normal people doing normal things to these Jeeps, they don't have the experience to make all the coolant temperature valves work properly, and the vacuum valves, and the preheater that runs off the exhaust manifold. They don't have the time nor the patience to deal with that stuff. So if you have a Carter BBD2 style carburetor, and you'll know it, it's very easy to tell, it's got a big plug on the back of it, you're really left with a few options. You can go with a BBD1 style carburetor off the earlier Jeeps, and that's perfectly fine. You're going to need to do a nutter bypass because the computer's going to freak out when it doesn't see the carburetor, and it's not going to run the engine correctly. So you have the BBD1 style you can upgrade to. You can upgrade to what's called a Motorcraft 2100 or a 2150 style carburetor, which I absolutely love that upgrade. The one issue I have with that upgrade though is it's not really a direct bolt-on. All right, there was a guy that was selling kits on eBay for years and years and years. He stopped selling the kits, and all the good 2100s are pretty much gone. They've all been beat to hell, and they're all in junkyards. They've had crap fuel sitting in them for decades. So if you go with that kit, just know it's going to require some fab. You have to run a bigger style air cleaner. You got to figure out your throttle, how that's going to work, because it doesn't pull the same way as a factory Jeep one. So that is one option you're left with. And then the third one is a fuel injection kit. Now, in the realm of fuel injection kits for these Jeeps, there's multi-port and there's throttle body. All right. Some people choose to do a 4.0 style multi-port fuel injection upgrade. That's fantastic. I don't want to do that. I don't think it's necessary. It is a CJ, you know. So you can do that upgrade. You put a 4.0 in it, or you can swap over the fuel injection kit from a 4.0 and run the Jeep. Or you're dealing with a throttle body style. Now the throttle body style kits, Howell makes one, PFI system makes one, there's a few other Mega Squirt, you can make your own, and then there's the Holley Sniper. I personally would not recommend the Holley Sniper. All right, I have no real data to go off of as why I wouldn't recommend it, but I think that you are paying a premium for a kit that doesn't really have revolutionary technology in it. Okay, you can do a lot more with a little bit of time and energy and just a normal kit. To be honest with you, the only reason I ran a Howell kit is because I found one used that was basically brand new. The guy opened the box, for whatever reason said this isn't for me, and I got it for a very good deal. Beyond that, I would go with a PFI system one. The guy's got a website, he's out of Michigan, fantastic customer support. I like that system, I like the way it's set up, and I like his how-to videos. He actually goes through the install on a CJ if you were interested in taking a look at that. All right? So, if you think you're a candidate for this type of upgrade, I highly recommend it. And I'm going to go through, again, I'm going to go through the things that I did that I feel are the best ways to go about installing this, and they've treated me well. So, hang on for a minute. I'm going to get you over here, and we'll take a look at it. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to remove the air cleaner, and I'm going to show you how I set up this TBI kit. All right. So first things, a lot of people when they do one of these kits, they're concerned about, oh, can I run the factory air filter? And the short answer is no. You can if you want to do some work. There's been people out there, they've made adapters and so on to make this thing work. I chose not to because this is not a restoration Jeep, it is just a Jeep. All right. So we're going to take this off. This is a normal Amazon quality, air filter with a paper element, nothing special. It's a straight 6, so you're not flowing a bunch of air anyways. All right. So the first part of this that I think everybody should do is you want to get yourself a TBI, they call them spacers, TBI adapters. These are off of any vehicle that had this style injection system. So your 4.3s, your smaller 5 liters, even your 5.7s, think mid-80s GM products. They're going to have this, and what this allows you to do is to run your breather for the other side of your crankcase ventilation and have it pull clean air off the air filter. In my opinion, this is a nice way to do it. Some people drill holes in their air filters and run an elbow. I don't think that's necessary. And also, it helps you get the air filter up above this brake booster. All right. So this is one part that I did. Okay. Now the second part of this is the throttle body itself. All right. When you buy one of these kits, whoever you buy it from, they should give you an appropriately sized throttle body, and they should give you an adapter that goes between the stock Carter BBD2 Style mount and the TBI mount. All right. Now beyond that, there's not a lot that really goes into this. You have a fuel supply and a fuel return, all right, here on the back, and then you have a connection here for your positive crankcase ventilation, and you've got some other assorted connections for things like your ported vacuum advance. All right, I have mine also going to the signal wire, or excuse me, the signal hose going down to my charcoal canister. And then you've got a couple other sources of vacuum here that you can use for various things if you need one. All right, and then you know, on the back here I also have the manifold vacuum connection for my charcoal canister. I chose to run a charcoal canister versus a vented fuel system. I felt like this was a better thing to do, given the fact that there's an electric fuel pump and the fuel does heat up. I like to reclaim the vapors, you know, vice venting them out of the fuel cap. So this takes care of actually mounting this setup. Beyond that, there's really nothing special. You know, the wiring is all very nicely labeled. Tells you what sensors go where. I just chose to like clone how my wiring runs throughout the firewall, and I put the fuel injection wiring right near the rest of it. Okay, so for the next part of this, we have the mounting of the fuel injection control computer. Now, what I chose to do, because this is a mid to late 80s CJ, it has the factory electronic carburetor computer mounted up here. There's a clip on top of the air box. You take out the glove compartment insert. It's very easy to see. The fuel injection computer is just about the same size as the old computer. So what I chose to do is I ripped out the fuel injection computer, and in the same bracket I ripped out the old carb computer, and in the same bracket I put the fuel injection computer with a large hose clamp that goes around it that secures it in there. And from here, it's very nice to be able to access all the wiring that needs to go through the firewall, because if you come over here with me, swing around the Jeep here, because the factory computer connection comes through the firewall right there. All right, right here. So what I did is I cut this grommet, I slipped out the old wiring, and I put in the fuel injection harness right there. All right, it's an extremely clean, easy way to install this, and it keeps at least somewhat of the factory look to the harness. I mean, I know I don't care about that, but if that's something you're looking for, that is a nice way to do it. Okay, now underneath here we have the last part of my fuel injection install. So what I chose to do, my factory fuel lines were in good shape. Okay, this is the supply line that runs down the passenger's frame rail. And this supply line is more than adequate to feed a throttle body system, okay? So what I chose to do is I came off with a compression fitting to a barb, and then I went to a TBI style fuel pump, all right? A lot of the kits come with a fuel pump that's appropriately sized, and because this is a TBI system, it does not need the high fuel pressure to run like a multi-port system, right? This thing puts out, it's under 20 psi, so you don't need high pressure fuel connections running through here. All right, so I went with a TBI style pump. It has a barb fitting on the end. I came out and I went into a canister style fuel filter right here. I can't remember exactly what this was from, probably like an S10 or something, but really any TBI factory fuel filter will work. So I came into it, came out again, went back into a barb fitting, and from here I continued up the passenger's frame rail in the factory supply line. All right. Okay, now up underneath the motor. All right, here's my fuel supply line that comes from my fuel pump assembly. I came up and I went to some flexible line and through this check valve. Now this check valve is not necessary. This is just something I chose to put on there, and that way the fuel would never flow down from this hose back down through the fuel pump. I'm not sure if it really helps anything. The Jeep tends to prime rather quickly, but so I went through there, and then from there I went right over the factory fuel line that comes from the carburetor, or goes to the carburetor. Okay, I went up over the motor, and now this fuel line ends right over here. Hold on a second. Okay, this fuel line in the factory setup, it comes down, it loops around, and normally your fuel filter will be located somewhere in this area. Usually it's up here. I went around the manifold through a couple of clamps and came up into the supply connection right here. Now for the return side, the fuel pressure regulator is inside of this, okay? This TBI assembly has an internal fuel pressure regulator. My return hose, I came out through the same common clamp point, and I ran it down, and I connected it to, up under here, the factory fuel return line. All right, the factory fuel return line runs down the driver's frame rail. I ran that all the way back to the fuel tank as intended, using the factory hoses and everything, and that was the gist of my fuel supply system for this TBI upgrade. Okay, it doesn't need to be fancy high pressure stuff. You don't need AN style fittings, none of that stuff. It's a nice, simple solution to running a TBI system. All right, now the last part of this that is going to vary depending on your specific kit that you buy is the ignition system, okay? This is a Howell TBI kit, so on a Howell TBI kit, it does not control the timing of the engine. If you were to go with a different kit, I believe Hawley Sniper has a timing control function. Company called PFI Systems out of Michigan, they run one where they change this out to a Chevrolet style large cap distributor, and they control the timing. I chose not to do that. So what I chose to do was the nutter bypass. This is a method that has been used for decades at this point. I've done at least 4 of them, and to be honest with you, I've never had a problem with them. A lot of people complain about, you know, the old Ford ignition box there on the driver's fender, and oh, I need to upgrade to an HEI, and realistically you don't need to do that. You know, technically the HEI is an older design. Yes, it's simpler, it's tried and true, it's proven, but that Ford, I think they call it the DuraSpark or something like that, that ignition system has been around for decades now. I mean, it's also proven to be reliable, and what I like about it is it just retains a lot of the factory components that worked perfectly fine when the Jeep left the factory, and there's really no need to waste your money on. You know, put it somewhere else. So if you're interested in learning how to do a nutter bypass, there's more than enough literature out there. You know, and it's very, very simple to do. It's very easy to do. And then, you know, beyond that, I just ran the ported vacuum, all right, so that the vacuum advance works appropriately. And I have a factory style ignition coil. All right, I tapped into the negative side of this coil for my tachometer input for the fuel injection. And beyond that, that's honestly about it. Very, very simple install. Okay, now the last part of this that I want to talk about is the throttle hookup itself. This is extremely important. If you have an automatic transmission Jeep, you're going to want to keep the factory throttle swing arm set up like it was intended, because it has your kick down linkage, and it's very important you keep that functioning. All right, what I chose to do, I did not want to reinvent the wheel here. All this is a piece of threaded rod. I think it's like a 632 or an 832 threaded rod with a couple of the normal, you know, quick ball and socket style connections, and I just ran it from the factory fuel setup, or factory throttle rather, where you hit the throttle and it will pull down. All right, and I ran that up to the fuel injection, so that as I actuate the throttle via the cable in the back here, it pulls down on the fuel injection and it clears everything nicely, and there's really no issues beyond that. Alright, so I hope this video helps you out in some way to go ahead and make the commitment to do something with the Jeep that hasn't been running in your driveway for like 6 or 8 months, and you keep telling the wife you're going to get it fixed, right? You know, there's a million things you can spend your money on nowadays, and it's all about getting that value for your dollar, and in my opinion, this is a fantastic value for what you get out of it. Okay, the consistency of having a Jeep that just runs and drives and will throw a check engine light if you got something wrong. I know, you know, everybody on the internet, oh, I want a check engine light. You also don't know if it's running right. You know, where this one, it has an O2 sensor in the O2 sensor bung like these Jeeps have, and it will tell you if something's wrong. It'll tell you if the throttle position sensor's messed up. It will tell you if you have an issue with your motor, with the base idle, whatever it may be. So let me know what you think, right, in the comments. If you think I screwed something up, if you think I'm stupid, let me know by all means. And And as always, you know, please like and subscribe to my channel. We're going to be doing a lot more with the Jeep here. So I hope this video helps you out. For now, Cam Sweet with the Garage Connection, and stay on those projects.